Hello, listeners. This is Ken. Welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfic. This will be the continuation of Prodigal. This will be Part 2, Chapter 2, entitled To the Gate. Nezu was an odd thing to look at. As much as Izuku respected him as an authority figure, he was so weird. Izuku sat in the chair, before the principal's desk, shoulders fallen with resigned acceptance. This meeting was all for show. He knew very well that he was no longer welcome at UA school. He had been brought here because he had been All Might's successor. He'd been a newly quirked child with big dreams. He'd had wide eyes and high hopes and a smile that had been too large for his face. God, he'd been so dumb, hadn't he? Now Midoriya. And why did his name sound so fake on this principal's tongue? I know that things have become odd recently. Izuku tried not to laugh at the choice of words. Odd. Yes, he supposed that described his situation. A quirk for a little more than a year, that had given him permanent scars and horribly high pain tolerance, was suddenly stripped from him by the man whom he had looked up to for over a decade. Odd. Yes. Perfect. Heartbreaking would have been the idiom he would have gone with. What with the way his chest hurt, with One for All's absence, or how his arms continued to ache, even though the power that had made them so was gone. It didn't matter, he supposed. Much like him. You don't have to pretend here, Principal Nezu. I know that you knew about One for All, my connection to All Might. Izuku was so tired of being lied to, of people pretending to care about him and what he'd wanted. He had been a vessel, he had been trained, and he had tried, God, he had tried, but in the end, he had not been good enough. His purpose had been served. He almost wished that All Might had found Mirio first and never stumbled upon Izuku all those months ago. But no, it had been so good. For a moment, he had truly felt that he could be a hero. He had done so much, hadn't he? From the entrance exam to saving Eri, he had grown from a scrawny little nobody to a future pro-hero. For a few precious months, he had been great. I also know that that connection was one of the reasons I was allowed to stay despite my poor performance at the entrance exam. He swallowed, tired eyes never straying from his superior. He did not have the energy to pretend anymore, nor the care. This was a formality, a nice way to show Izuku the way out. He may be dumb, but he was not a fool. I know that it's the main reason I've stayed, despite the rule-breaking and the endangerment to myself, not to mention the horrible report I'm sure Aldera sent when I first applied. You're bright, young Midoriya. Nezu clapped his paws together, seemingly the picture of delight. Toshinori and I have surmised that it would be best if you transferred to the Gen Ed course to continue your education at UA. Your grades are superb and— Principal Nezu. The Viridian-haired boy sighed, rolling his shoulders. With all due respect, the confusion and suspicion that would cause would become more trouble than it's worth. My disappearing to the Gen Ed course, and Mirio suddenly possessing my abilities while I become quirkless. Someone smart is bound to figure that out, and you can bet Aizawa-sensei will pick up on this quicker than anyone. Izuku was sure they would not tell Aizawa. He had been forbidden from telling his homeroom teacher by All Might when the whole thing began. When they'd first been introduced, Izuku was all too happy to comply. He had been afraid of the underground hero then. Aizawa was all rough edges and harsh tones. He knew better now, though. Those eyes carried a certain exhausted fondness, and Aizawa was perhaps the only teacher that Izuku could trust. Midoriya, you're trying to get me to drop, he interrupted again. He could not remember the last time he had this much confidence against an authority figure. So just expel me. We have to have a legitimate reason for expulsion, Midoriya. The bare rat thing, Izuku was not sure, clicked his tongue. And you have done nothing wrong that has not already had consequences of its own. In fact, your behavior and grades show nothing but progress. The Gen Ed course would be lucky to have you. Because a quirkless kid doesn't belong in the hero course. A year ago, he never would have uttered the words screaming against the wall of his skull. Nezu's bright demeanor twitched. You would be in terrible danger. And that's so different than what's happened the last year. There was a bite in his tone that he had never heard before, harsh and curt. It was the Izuku that fought Shigaraki, that destroyed Overhaul for what he had done to Eri. It was the Izuku that would have made a great hero. Principal Nezu, there are lots of problems with this school, but the obvious discrimination to kids with less powerful quirks or no quirks at all might be the worst. Midoriya. His eyes narrowed, suspicion grew. You want to keep me here. Why? You remain a clever and aspiring hero. UA specializes in providing an environment for young heroes to prosper and hone their skills. You knew All Might would ask me to give away my quirk, Izuku breathed. Realization hit him and he straightened, eyes widening. Did you encourage him? Toshinori makes his own decisions, young Midoriya. You did! The teen jumped to his feet, brows furrowed, his heart fell to his shoes. I did my best, sir. I tried so hard and made so much progress. I got One for All under control in a few months, after being quirkless for years. I did so. He was so angry, but it was not real anger. He did not know that anger could taste so much like grief. His voice fell, shattered glass on a road of broken dreams. I did so much. Which is why you still have a spot at this school, Midoriya. Nezu's tone never changed. It was unsettling and irritating. What? Izuku felt a wan smile tug at his chapped lips. He leaned over the chair, crossing his arms over the headrest. Is Yue afraid that a teenager will spill its darkest secrets? You scared I'll go telling everyone All Might and my... Mirio's secret? The principal remained silent. That was answer enough. He felt the edges of his eyes burn, but he trampled the oncoming tears with a scoff. Ah, I see. Well, fear not, sir. I may be quirkless again, but I'm not a scumbag. I wanted to be a hero before I had a quirk. And that is why Toshinori chose you, Nezu exclaimed excitedly. And why Yue would still be lucky to have you. You don't have to pretend, Principal. Izuku stood straight and rolled his shoulders back. They slumped, exhaustion tangible across his torso. I know that I'm a liability now. I'm smart enough to understand that letting me out into the big bad world could mean dangerous things for this school's reputation. I also know that this entire meeting is a pathetic formality. You knew before I walked in here that I'd be leaving. For the first time, the animal before him lost a little sparkle in his eyes. Now, Midoriya, unless you need me to sign my own expulsion papers, sir, I believe that this entire session is rather pointless. By trying to convince me to join the Gen Ed course, you could then make it seem like an accident when I wasn't accepted. Ultimately, I would just be left without a course at all, and end up going home anyway. Izuku sighed heavily, grabbing his bag from the floor. I'll save you the trouble. I'll clear out without a fuss. 2A is out with Aizawa-sensei anyway. No one will even notice I've gone, until Monday, when I don't show for class. Nezu, seeing his defeat, though Izuku wouldn't call it that since he was getting what he wanted, simply nodded. I'll send someone to help. And spread the word? He snorted without a trace of humor. Throwing his backpack over his shoulder, he made his way to the door. Just a car to drive me home would be nice. I'm thankful for everything that the school has done for me, sir. It's been the best. Perhaps the first human emotion trickled into his principal's eyes. Empathy. He does not say that Izuku would have been the greatest hero. He does not say that it has been a pleasure or that he's a good kid. He does not lie and say everything will be okay, that Izuku will still make it far in life. Nezu was smart, possibly the smartest being that Izuku had ever come into contact with. He knows the statistics. He knew he might not ever see the kid again. So instead, Nezu said, I wish you only the best, Midoriya Izuku. He swallowed, nodding once. With a twist of a doorknob and a deep breath, he stepped out of the principal's office. He was glad that he found those cardboard boxes. Part of him had wanted to toss all of his All Might merchandise. A voice had whispered that the hero did not deserve to be on his wall. He mostly listened. His posters were in the pile of trash bags that he would throw into the giant trash cans in the back of Heights Alliance before he left. With them were several books, action figures, and many magazine and newspaper clippings. Only 2 things were kept. One figurine was placed into his suitcase. Another was quietly slipped into Katsuki's room and placed on his desk. A letter beneath, silver suit All Might boots. One other letter was slipped under Aizawa-sensei's door, and he hoped that the teacher did not crush it as soon as he stepped inside. The gifts that he had received from his friends were wrapped in his clothes and packed with extreme care. Anything he did not need and would not fit into his room at home was thrown into trash bags. He stacked his school books on his desk and turned off the light. Izuku took a deep breath and looked around the bare room. All traces of him were gone. His peers had made fun of him for all of his decorations and cluttered living style. He supposed they would not have any reason to complain now. He wondered if he would ever see them again. Of course, he would freak out about each of their debuts. He would analyze their future fights, would rejoice with their victories, and mourn with their losses. He would buy all their merch and wear it with pride. But he was not like them anymore. He was back to being the worthless Deku that had stood on that roof and contemplated stepping off the edge. As he rolled his things into the elevator, he swallowed down his building tears. As the seconds seemed to grow shorter, memories flashed across his eyelids like a camera reel. Laughing with Ida and Uraraka's, Todoroki heated his soba with his middle finger. Mario Kart tournaments with Sero, Kaminari, and Kirishima. Food fights as Aizawa-sensei and President Mike watched on with concealed fondness. Movie night, curled up with all his friends, feeling for all the world that he was finally where he belonged. Looked like he was wrong. There was a car parked outside of the dorms. His eyes were immediately drawn to it as the elevator opened to the ground floor. He sniffled, glancing around the common area one last time. He made it to the doors and glanced at his watch. He had mere moments before 2A was supposed to return. His breath caught in his throat as he turned around. Well, he sighed, wiping a single tear from his cheek. Goodbye. There was no dramatic music, no sob-filled farewells. Perhaps it was for the best. He might have tarried too long if that was the case. A nameless driver sat in the front seat. Izuku loaded his things into the back and closed the door. Do you mind if you go on ahead and drive to my house? You can just drop the stuff off on the porch. At the man's raised brow, he added, I want to walk out of here. The chauffeur rolled his eyes and rolled up his window. The car came to life and sped off. Izuku watched it go long enough to hear a familiar explosion. Every single part of him wanted to stay, to explain, to make someone stop him. He didn't want to leave. Don't make me go. But no, this was for the best. Only the worthy belonged at UA, and Izuku was anything but that. He wished he had taken more time to explore, just to walk around the grounds and revel in his blessing. Now he was walking these lanes for the last time, and bemoaning all of his lost time. The walk to the main gates took longer from the dorms than the class buildings, and each step was precious. The exit had just come into view, when a shout cracked through the quiet afternoon like lightning. Deku! Izuku froze so quickly that he stumbled. Freshly healed injuries groaned against his skin as he skidded across the asphalt. He hissed between his teeth, and shook his head to try and rid his eyes of their tears. He could not do this. He could not face Katsuki. Deku! And suddenly there he was, kneeling beside his newly recovered childhood friend, crimson eyes furious but laced with worry. He would not be able to keep anything from Bakugo. He would see right through him if he tried. They had gotten so much better since their fight in first year. He could actually consider them friends again. Well, that was about to go right out the window. Kachan. Even he could hear how wrecked his voice was. He shook his head, throat aching at his attempts to stifle his sobs. He cleared his throat and pushed himself to his feet. He did not even make it a step. Katsuki grabbed his wrist, hand warm. What the hell is going on? It was not a question, so much as a demand. The smaller 16-year-old shook his head again, and pulled from his grasp. Katsuki was not supposed to be here. I don't know what you're talking about. This. And suddenly, the action figure was being shoved in his face. Those crimson eyes brightened. What the hell does this mean? Kachan. Your phone charger. Izuku blinked, tears disappearing for a moment at the sudden change in topic. This was giving him whiplash. What? Kachan's gaze had dropped to Izuku's hoodie. Your phone charger. Sure enough, the white cord was sticking out of his right side pocket. The fingers tightened on his wrist. Why are you taking your phone charger? You never take your phone charger anywhere. That's why you always lose battery and can't... He was not supposed to be here. Kachan was way too smart. Where are you going? Izuku's hanging head jerked up at the desperation in Bakugo's voice. Their gazes met, and Izuku almost crumbled. Those crimson eyes were wide, anger, drained with fear, taking its place. Those orbs searching his, with a prying that he had never been able to defend against. They bore into his soul and unearthed all his secrets. You're leaving. The rod that broke the camel's back. Isn't that how the saying went? His throat clenched, and a mangled sob pushed through his busted lips. The tears that had been fighting so valiantly to break free received their wish and cascaded down his cheeks. He saw the figurine clatter to the ground and warm hands grip his arms. What is going on, Deku? Why are you leaving? I can't. Tell me. He should have known by now. He could never refuse Katsuki. Is it All Might? One for all? Does someone else know? Are you leaving to keep us safe? Are you in danger? Rapid-fire questions, and they were all right but all wrong at the same time. Izuku choked, knee against Bakugo's chest and trying not to let the truth spill from his lips if he knew. Then their tentative companionship would shatter like glass. He would be back to being nothing, just dirt under Katsuki's feet. He would be another stepping stone in his climb toward the #1 hero. He was not sure he could lose this again. Deku? There was a softness in his tone that Izuku had not heard in a long time. I have to go. Hands moved to his shoulders and pushed him back so that he was forced to meet those probing eyes. Why? Izuku whined, wiping his face. Better to just tear it off like a band-aid. Maybe then Katsuki would be shocked enough that he could get a running start. I'm quirkless again. Sure enough, the other boy's jaw dropped, and his eyes widened. The fuck? A horribly dry laugh tore at the walls of his throat. Yeah. How? There was the anger that Izuku was waiting for. He just hoped none of the explosions landed on his bandaged areas. Recovery Girl had worked hard on those. All might he. He told me that I had to give it up. Suddenly the full reality hit him like a truck. He had been pushing the implications to the back of his brain, hoping that filling his quickly diminishing time with work would avoid the thought of being worthless again. His sobs gained a new power, and he shook with their weight. I had to give it to Mirio, and now I'm quirkless again, and I have to leave. I don't belong here anymore. Katsuki stared at him for an agonizingly long minute. No. Izuku blinked. What? No. It was a growl filled to the edges with a simmering rage. Those crimson eyes flashed, and suddenly the tightened grip was gone. Katsuki turned and began power walking, not back toward the dorms, but the faculty building. Kachan, wait! He was not supposed to know any of that. No one was supposed to know. That was the point of Izuku's disappearance. The fewer people who knew, the safer everyone was. Damn his feelings. No! You're not supposed to know that! He ran after his friend, still reeling from his lack of new explosion-shaped scars. Kachan! Kachan, stop! And stop he did. He whirled around to face Izuku with the fire of 1,000 suns in his eyes. No! You listen to me, Deku. They can't just take your quirk from you and then give it to someone else like you're just some vessel that they used and then abandoned. You think that I'm okay with all this? I get it's messed up, Kachan, but you can't tell them anything, he insisted harshly, glancing around to make sure they were alone. I wasn't supposed to tell anyone. So, you were just going to disappear and never see us again? He was back in Izuku's face again. Abandon us and never explain. You think that I want to leave? And finally, anger sprang to life inside of him. UA has been my dream for as long as it was yours, and now I have to... I did not choose this, Kachan. You should have fought harder. I tried! The words caught in his throat. He had said the same thing to All Might, to Nezu. His fury disappeared as quickly as it had surfaced, and his entire body sagged. He looked away and took a step back. I tried, Kachan. He raised his gaze and defeatedly added, I wasn't enough. Crimson and green warred for dominance. They can't do this. It's already done. So final, but he supposed it was appropriate. That was his only chance at his dream. Now it was gone, taken from his very veins and given to a new bearer. A better one. I'm telling Sensei, Katsuki snapped. You can't, Izuku reprimanded. I'm serious, Kachan. No one can know. It could put the whole school in danger, and I won't risk that just because I feel sad. Sad? The explosive teen recoiled. You think those idiots are going to be sad? Deku, they're going to be fucking devastated. You're the glue. For the third time, he was at a loss for words. What? Katsuki poked his chest. You keep this class together, Deku. You hold everyone else up. You're not like me, or half and half, or Four Eyes. You keep going, but you don't leave anyone behind. You take us with you, and without you, we'll... Izuku stared at him. His chest clenched at the admission. We, Bakugo had said. He included himself. Oh, how much he had grown. We can't do this without you. The admission took everything from the hot-headed hero, and Izuku knew that. His smile appeared for the first time since he had seen All Might in that hospital room. Warmth returned to the tips of his fingers. You'll learn how. You're all going to be amazing. We shouldn't have to lose you! Desperate, scared, he had only seen that expression once before at Ground Beta with the confession that had changed their relationship forever. You think I want to be lost? Izuku stepped closer. This isn't right, he scowled, turning his head away. His hands were fisted at his sides, and anger settled across his form. However, there was a certain acceptance in his stance. He knew this could not change. Maybe not, the green-haired boy conceded. But it is what it is. Kachan? His gaze remained on the ground. Katsuki. Boy, did those crimson eyes snap back to his, the warmth spread to his shoulders. Just know that you'll always have me cheering you on. You were always my symbol of victory." Bakugo's expression softened by a millimeter. "Why are you being dumb? You're talking like we'll never see each other again." "I'm not dumb, Kachan." Izuku laughed wetly. "I'm a quirkless Deku again. I know what that means." Memories of burning flesh and scalding words. He was sure that the blonde was remembering the same. "No." Katsuki's hard tone cut through the midst of his mind. A hand grabbed his, fingers dancing across his scars. His eyes tore up at the speed of a bullet and latched onto that red gaze. I was an absolute asshole, okay? I know I was the absolute fucking worst, and you deserve an apology. Hell, you deserve more than just one." Izuku was speechless. He had imagined this moment before, never had it turned out like this. "And I'm sorry." His fingers tightened around Izuku's. "So fucking sorry. I was wrong." "Kachan." "You're wrong, Deku." He paused, swallowing, and holy crap, those were tears. "Izuku, you are not worthless or useless or whatever other shit I ever said. We're friends?" he breathed. Katsuki smirked. "Yeah, friends. We were best friends once." "Yeah." "I'm sorry I ruined it." Izuku smiled. "I forgive you." Bakugo's face transformed into one of wonder. "I don't deserve—" "It's not about what you deserve." And even though he had no quirk, even though he was leaving the greatest place he had ever known, even though he was giving up on a dream that had shaped his entire life, Midoriya Izuku laughed. "You beat those other extras, okay, Kachan?" At the terminology, his friend grinned proudly. "You make it to the #1 spot and surpass them all." "Stop acting like you won't be with me every step of the way," Katsuki retorted softly. Izuku matched his smile. "I'm looking forward to it." For a moment, the blonde frowned. "I'll become better than All Might. I won't ever make someone else feel the way we've made you feel." It was just another apology. Izuku was shocked to realize he did not need it. "You'll be the best of us, Kachan." "No." He shook his head. "You're the best of us, Deku. Quirk or no quirk. That's not going to change." Izuku snickered. "I guess I'll just have to learn how to do it my way, huh? Watch out, Kachan. It would be embarrassing to be surpassed by a quirkless hero." Those red eyes seemed to express that the opposite was true. His grip tightened for a moment and they simply looked at one another. "You're still a hero, Izuku." He whispered the words like an oath. "You'll always be a hero." "Thanks, Kachan." He stepped back to hold out his hand. The blonde took it without hesitation. "I'll see you later, Bakugo Katsuki." "See you this weekend, loser." It was a promise. Izuku turned and wiped his wet cheeks. Kachan was right. He was still a hero. He would do it for all the quirkless kids. He would do it for his classmates, for Sensei, for Kachan. He would do it for himself. "Takiru!" The nickname made the warmth spread to every part of his body, and he turned to look over his shoulder. Katsuki held up the figurine, limited edition, and blew it the fuck up. He raised a fist in the air. Izuku copied his motion. It was the only thing that day that did not feel like a goodbye. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 2 of Prodigal. Chapter 3 will be next. I hope you all are enjoying this so far. Let me know your thoughts and reactions, and as always, thank you so much for listening.